3 true horror stories that happened on Christmas. Number 3. On the night of December 25th, 1996, while the rest of the United States was celebrating with joy, a wealthy family in Boulder, Colorado, woke up to a nightmare that still has no closure today. JonBenet Ramsey, a 6-year-old girl known in her social circle for winning child beauty pageants, was murdered inside her own home. It all began on the morning of the 26th when her mother, Patsy, discovered a ransom note on the staircase. The handwritten message claimed the girl had been kidnapped and demanded $118,000, curiously the exact amount her father had just received as a work bonus. Police were called immediately, but what seemed like a kidnapping soon turned into something far more sinister. Hours later, during a search of the house, JonBenet's father found her body in the basement, wrapped in a white blanket like a macabre gift. The autopsy revealed horrors, a brutal blow to the skull and strangulation with an improvised garrote made from one of her mother's paintbrushes. There were no signs of forced entry. The ransom note appeared to have been written with paper and pen from inside the house, and the child had never left the home. Was it an intruder who had time to calmly write 3 pages, or something from within the family itself? The investigation was plagued with mistakes, contaminated evidence, leaks to the press, and overwhelming media exposure that turned the case into a spectacle. Decades later, theories continued to surface. An unknown pedophile, an accident covered up by the parents, even suspicion toward the older brother. No one has ever been convicted. What remains most disturbing is the contrast. A house decorated with Christmas lights, unopened gifts under the tree, and a silent crime that occurred while everyone slept. JonBenet, wearing her pageant dress, became the symbol of innocence stolen on the most joyful date of the year. Number 2. Let's move on to something even more chilling, because it involves Santa Claus himself turned into an executioner. It was the night of December 24th, 2008, in Covina, California. A family was celebrating Christmas Eve at the Ortega household. Laughter, food, excited children, a moment of happiness. But just minutes before midnight, someone knocked on the door dressed as Santa Claus. It was Bruce Pardo, 45 years old, the ex-husband of Sylvia Ortega, one of the family's daughters. When they opened the door, believing it was a festive surprise, Pardo pulled out a semi-automatic handgun and began shooting without mercy. Chaos erupted instantly. Bullets flying, people screaming, desperate attempts to escape through windows. Not satisfied with that, Pardo carried a homemade fuel tank disguised as a gift, which he used to spray the house before setting it on fire. The fire consumed everything rapidly. 9 people died that night: parents-in-law, his ex-wife, siblings, and nephews. Some were burned alive, and others were killed by gunfire. 3 children survived miraculously, though with severe injuries. Hours later, in the early morning of December 25th, Pardo took his own life at his brother's house, his plans to flee to Canada thwarted by the burns he had suffered himself. Investigators later confirmed it had all been premeditated. He had purchased the costume, weapons, and improvised flamethrower weeks in advance, driven by a bitter divorce and financial troubles. The cruel irony is undeniable. Santa, the icon of Christmas generosity, used as a disguise to enter without suspicion and massacre an entire family. Imagine children opening the door with excitement, only to unleash hell inside their home. This case is a reminder that evil can hide behind the most innocent costume. Number 1. And now, the most horrifying case, not because of intentional human cruelty, but because of a tragedy that erased not one, but many lives in just minutes, leaving an entire community shattered on a night meant only for joy. It was December 24th, 1924, Christmas Eve, at the small Babb Switch School near Hobart, Oklahoma. A one-room wooden schoolhouse served as a community center for a holiday festival. Carols, gifts, and highly flammable Christmas decorations, as was common at the time. The room was packed with children, parents, and neighbors, more than 200 people crammed into a limited space. Everything was fine, until a decoration caught fire. The flames spread like a ravenous demon through the dry wood, fresh paint, and varnish. Panic erupted, screams pushing, people crushed at narrow exits. The windows were barred with metal grates, making escape impossible. The main door opened inward and became blocked by the crowd, forming a deadly bottleneck. Within minutes, the roof collapsed. Rescuers and horrified neighbors encountered a vision of hell. Charred bodies, many impossible to identify, piled near the exit. 36 people died, most of them children between 5 and 12 years old. Entire families were destroyed. Some parents lost multiple children in a single night. Funerals followed for days as the town sank into a grief that scarred generations. There was no murderer, only negligence, flammable decorations, overcrowding, insufficient exits, and a building that should never have held so many people. But the horror lies in the ordinary, a Christmas celebration turning into a mass grave. Bab's switch became a historical lesson in safety, but the cost was devastating. Carols were replaced by screams, the smell of cookies by smoke. This was not just a tragedy. It was a reminder that Christmas can become a nightmare in the blink of an eye. You've been watching The Forsaken, a new channel, where every week we examine real cases and disturbing events drawn from documented accounts. And if you want to follow future investigations, you can subscribe to the channel. Until then.